Hello, my babies. It is I, Dan Telfer, the guy who runs this Grim and Whimsy thing. Did I say my name too fast? Is that bad publicity? Dan Telfer. Should I also have more dramatic lighting and a green screen behind me? Hopefully one day I'll be able to have extravagant things like that in my TTRPG mansion. But for now, I'm making y'all some videos that I hope will just be easily digestible and fun. Digestible in a delightful, saltine kind of way, but complex and delicious like an exotic flavor of ice cream. What's that, Duncan? He would like me to know that he is an exotic flavor of cat. He's got some Siamese and Bengal in him, and some Egyptian Mao we discovered. But I do feel like the meow. I've thought about it. I've tried to blame it on all kinds of parts of him. I think the meowing is Siamese, right? Like a Siamese cat is the one most likely to follow you around the house and just go meow, meow, like just to please look at me. You know, like a college roommate who was not given enough attention as a child and stands next to the television while you're trying to watch Lost. Anyway, I want to make a video for everyone, literally everyone who wants to play a tabletop role-playing game, be it Dungeons & Dragons, Pathfinder, Cortex, Shadowrun, Rifts, Call of Cthulhu, and I want it to be for game masters, dungeon masters, players, because I've been making a lot of like dungeon master-centric ones. You know, so this is about assembling a group, which anybody can do. This is about figuring out who amongst your friends is going to be the best chemistry of folks. He's like right on the keyboard. The best chemistry of folks together. Like, for instance, right now, I'm playing with a game I'm paid to run. I'm playing with, in addition to that, the Nerd Poker podcast campaign and a group of friends. And I'm going to go ahead and walk you through kind of that group of friends as an example of how I gathered some folks for a game. Now, really try to think of this in steps. I'm going to start with what I think is like where you should start like internal logically. And as I go, this is like the running order of steps I suggest that you take when you're, you know, assembling a group. And not all this is going to make sense if you're the kind of person who plays games of D&D for streaming or money. Sometimes this is going to be very business oriented. I understand this can be a complicated thing in this world where TTRPGs, tabletop role-playing games, are very popular. I'm talking about where you have a lot of control over the situation, right? It's not just like you and your mom says, run a game for your cousins. This is a game where you have some, you know, agency over who's going to play. Step one, decide what you want out of it, whoever you are. If you are assembling these players, guess what? Decide what you want out of it. And then, you know, you're going to eventually reach out to people, but that's not even an important part. Reaching out is your job to figure out on your own. I don't know how to talk to your friends. First, you got to decide what you want out of it. And I would tell your friends too, like if they're even considering, if you're having that conversation, ask them, what do you want out of it? We should all know what we want out of it. This includes a lot of proactive stuff. Like, I want to be able to fight. I want to be in a dungeon. I don't want to be in a dungeon. I want to explore an entire continent. I want to explore a small town. I want a detective mystery. It can be anything you want. What do you want to do? Do you want to be a player? Do you want to run it? You can organize a game if you're just going to be, you know, like, I wish I could find a game where I could just be a drow priestess fighter. But I haven't been able to really kind of figure out how the perfect situation would be for that. So I like to run Dungeon Master games just because I feel like I will get what I want, which is a tone that I didn't get when I was a kid. When I was young, really hard to find a tone of Dungeons and Dragons that really worked for me. And I know the way I can get that best is if I'm the Dungeon Master. I'm giving a group the tone that I wish I had as a kid, and then they give back because they showed up knowing what they want. So really think about that. The other side of the coin of knowing what you want to like get out of it is knowing what you kind of don't want. So I recommend all of you kind of putting together a list of what you don't want to deal with in the game. Usually, this is only really extreme stuff that everyone's going to immediately agree about, and you're going to all kind of be like, oh, did we even need to say it? But I think it really helps sometimes. You never know Really, trust me, you really don't know. Sometimes there's going to be someone in your group who's like, I'm only going to have fun if we don't have somebody drown, because that really freaks me out to the point where I will not have fun. You know, like, everyone for a second might be tempted to be like teasing them, but you're going to realize, oh, they wouldn't have brought that up if they weren't serious. So this is a really, really important thing. Figure out what you want and be proud about asking for it. You deserve to have a good time. It's a game. Second, eliminate whatever expectations you have. This is different than not getting what you want out of it. But if you think a D&D game or a Pathfinder, Shadowrun, Cortex game has to go a certain way, I have news for you. Surprises are often the most delightful thing about being alive, right? So you want to be surprised in the game, and the only way that's going to happen is if you stop expecting it to go a certain way. You should really be just basing the beginnings of it off of your group so you can figure out a tone together, right? Like, I brought a tone to the game I'm running right now with friends, but I was kind of vibing it off of the specific chemistry we had. So I set aside all expectations about like comparing it to my podcast, comparing it to games where I make money. I try to compare it to just the people I'm going to be playing with and like what I think the vibe is going to be. So I assembled 2 old friends from college, the husband of a friend from college who like kind of knew my friends from college. But because I didn't know the husband of my best friend from college, I was like, well, hey, why don't you invite a couple of your friends that you know really well? I want to get to know you. But if you have some friends that you know really well who are joining me and my friends, that chemistry might be good. And what turned out to be great was these folks really did kind of like know these folks as acquaintances, and we all got along. But we had to kind of like just learn each other's personalities along the way, which is a really fun bonus when you're paying attention without expectations. You know? And we'll get more into like group dynamics at the end, but I really wanted to bring up just how important it is to kind of go, oh, learning what everyone else likes and shows up with is more important than what I thought Dungeons and Dragons or tabletop role playing needed to be at all. Like, at all. You might be in a group where people really like to role play. They might really hate that. They might want to fight. They might want to not fight. Think about just how many parts of it people might have favorites, and just like learn what you have in common by playing together, as opposed to showing up and just taking what you wanted out of it and just throwing it at people. Yes, you should show up knowing what you want out of it, but you shouldn't assume everyone else is going to also think that's fun. So tell each other before you start playing, right? And then, if you have to, remind someone and let everyone know, hey, like I kind of showed up for this. Do you think we could do a little bit more of this? But you got to be clear about that in the beginning. So that way you don't have to show up worried about your expectations. Okay. Number 3, share whatever knowledge and tools you have. I think this generosity is super important at the very beginning of the game too, because some people don't know how to use virtual tabletop. We're all playing when I say all, a lot of Dungeons and Dragons and tabletop role-playing games are happening online. Way more since the pandemic started, but I've noticed even though a lot of people are playing in person, they're still playing it online. And I played Dungeons and Dragons over Google Groups or Meets or whatever before the pandemic, and it was fun. And I played it on Twitch before the pandemic, and it was fun. And I think, we all have to kind of think about what are we really enjoying that's like a special part of Dungeons and Dragons that everyone might not already know. Maybe think about before the game starting, checking in with everybody. Be like, have you all seen this new class called Blood Hunter? By now it's like 5-6 years old, right? But like if you go to everybody and say like, hey, I think you all said you haven't played Dungeons and Dragons since 2000. Have you seen Blood Hunters? Pretty cool. And then you can share your knowledge about it. But, feel it out. Feel out what people already don't know. Roll20.net. Super bonus for me, but you might know some other stuff that's super handy. The group that I'm paid to run a game for right now, one of the guys in there was like, have you heard of Dungeon Alchemist. Dungeon Alchemist is this amazing map drawing tool. I was so grateful this dude could share it with me. You know, like I was like, okay, yes. And so when you have stuff like that, just lay it on the table. You, again, don't have expectations about it, but be like, hey, does everyone know about this? It's cool. That kind of stuff can make a huge difference for new players to the game, because sometimes it might be intimidating, but other times they might be like, oh, I see other people at the table don't know what this is either. What if we learn together? That could be fun. You know what I mean? And everyone's just so grateful for generosity. It's a chance to get to know people better. It's a chance for everyone to feel like they're on an equal playing field and no one's like got these elitist gatekeeper secrets when you play. Think about that. And finally, just think about the group fun. This has got to be fun for everybody. I alluded that we were going to get to this. Try to take your ego and go like, look, I came into this game. I told everyone what I wanted out of it. Ego, focus on everyone else and not yourself. Ego, go sit in the closet. You'll feel good in the closet. I got you taken care of. I got all kinds of luxury items, but you need to step back a little bit sometimes. Not everybody. I think people who show up worrying every session, will this be fun? Will this be fun? Should kind of look around the table and be like, well, how is everyone else having fun? Right? If I can help someone else feel cool and look good, odds are they're going to remember that and they're going to want me to have fun, and it's just going to create this really good vibe. So think about that. It's an old improv trick. Make others look good. You know what I mean? So thank you so much for watching the video. Remember, this is all powered by Patreon. So please check out patreon.com/grimandwhimsy.